The only caution I'd give is the law of unintended consequences, which I think always occurs. The whole concept behind having Fannie and Freddie was to encourage home ownership, part of the American dream for many, many decades after World War II. And there are lots of implications of that American dream. Some of them are good, some of them maybe not so good in terms of some of the economic policies that have come home to roost. But I think you need to think about an awful lot of this. You know, if you don't have home ownership in this country and you change the way that people think about what they own, what they don't own, and what they care about, there have been an awful lot of studies that show, for example, levels of crime in areas where people don't have home ownership, that talk about instability in families and all sorts of other things when people don't have something like a home that they care about. And we, I think, have lots of other effects when you do something that changes a significant piece of the American fabric. It doesn't mean that it shouldn't be done. It doesn't mean that it's not the right thing to do at this point or that we haven't underestimated the costs. But I do think there are other benefits that need to be taken into account as well. And there are a lot of implications of some of these things that are way beyond just simply the economic issues.
Go ahead.
Can we measure systemic risk, and if so, how?
Anybody?
No.
I guess the answer is no.
Don't create it.
This is a question for Mr. Greenberg. I was actually at the September 12th march that Ambassador Gray spoke at and heard all the people cheering, and I had a real sense that people are the American public is really angry about what's happened with the financial crisis and the bailout, even before the bailouts. And I'm just wondering, as the former CEO of AIG, do you have any remorse or regrets for the role that AIG played in the financial crisis? And then, knowing what you know now, is there anything you would have done differently that might have changed the outcome of what we're seeing today?
Oops. Mr. Greenberg, are
Yeah.
you there? Oh, I think that question was for you.
Can you repeat it, please?
Oh.
The abridged version is, do you have any remorse or regret about the role that AIG played in the financial crisis, and knowing what you know now about the way things have worked out, is there anything you would have done differently during your tenure at AIG that might have changed the trajectory and what's happened with the financial system?
No, I don't think so. We had an enterprise risk system which covered both the market and credit risk. We did not write the volume of credit default swaps while I was there. I think it's been reported many times that in the 7 months after I left, there was as much written or more and different quality than in the number of years that existed previously. No, I think we had a very good record. We had very good risk management controls, but I can't be responsible for what happened after I left. So, in hindsight, would I have done it differently? I don't think so. I mean, the record of AIG speaks for itself while I was there.
Question in the back.
Yes, thank you. Art Mackenberg questioning for Mr. Gray initially, but the others also. And I have to admit that I'm a little confused, and so I'm looking for a definition. I've been reading in the Wall Street Journal daily for many years, and now increasingly recently about this thing called systemic risk. And I'm puzzled by this term because I don't know what we're talking about here. And the reason I don't know what we're talking about is that for me, systemic risk appears when the chief executive starts appointing czars all over the place without any advice or consent of anyone in the Senate, who seem to have office powers, and other constitutional problems that I see as more systemic than the economic system. I also wonder if systemic risk is actually systemic. For example, what I would think of like the complete failure of the Federal Reserve. or something that maybe is systemic. I wonder, how would it solve it by concentrating more power in the federal government, either at the executive level or at another central power position? And so I become confused, and I am really looking for a clear definition of the scope and breadth of this thing called systemic risk. Thank you.
Well, I think we had that question once before, and nobody really said they could define it. So,
Well, I don't know what systemic risk is exactly. I'm a lawyer, and thank God it's not for me to have to decide these things. But I do think that the government-supported bigness, government-supported size, is part of the risk, and you just don't create it to begin with if you can avoid that. One piece about the previous question about AIG, I think it was after Mr. Greenberg left, but the thing that caused the problem was the unit in London, as I understand it, that wrote all the credit default swaps. And there still is a residual question, well, whose responsibility was that from the point of view of the government? And I don't know the answer. That's one of the things.
There was a regulator. It was the Office of the Thrift Administration. They spent many, many days at AIG Financial Products, and I believe in London as well. You know, there was regulators in all parts of our business, whether it's the insurance commissioners and the insurance side, or whether it was foreign entities. They were all regulated.